You found this video. Or maybe, more accurately, this video found you. Not because an algorithm made a random calculation and served you a piece of content that happened to match a keyword you searched last Tuesday. Not because you were scrolling at the right moment and this thumbnail caught your eye by chance. Those things may be true on the surface, but underneath them, something else was happening. Something that has been happening across your entire life in ways you have mostly called coincidence and moved on from without examining too closely. The word for it is synchronicity. And once you understand what it actually is, once you stop dismissing it as luck or pattern recognition or the brain's tendency to find meaning where there is none, it will change the way you read every single thing that has ever happened to you. Synchronicity is not coincidence. Coincidence is two things happening at the same time that have no connection to each other. Synchronicity is two things happening at the same time that have every connection to each other. A connection that runs underneath the visible surface of events, in the layer where meaning is made before it becomes visible in the world. Think about the moments in your life that changed everything. Not the ones you planned, not the outcomes of deliberate strategy or careful preparation, the ones that arrived sideways, the conversation you were not supposed to have, the door you walked through by accident, the moment you were in the wrong place, at the wrong time, and it turned out to be exactly the right place, at exactly the right time. Almost no one's life was changed by the thing they planned. Almost every life was changed by the thing that arrived unexpectedly. The thing that, looked at from the outside, appeared random, but felt from the inside like something that was always going to happen. That feeling was not your imagination. It was recognition. The part of you that exists underneath the noise of the matrix, recognizing something that the surface level of your mind had not yet caught up to. The matrix calls this coincidence because coincidence requires no explanation and demands no response. If the moment was random, you can file it away, move on, and return to the program already running. But if the moment was arranged, if what looked like accident was actually appointment, then it demands something from you. It demands that you pay attention, that you take seriously what just happened, that you consider the possibility that your life is being navigated by something with a much longer view than you have access to from where you are standing. That is the thing the matrix cannot afford for you to believe. Because a person who believes their life is being navigated, who trusts that the seemingly random collisions of circumstance are actually orchestrated movements in a larger plan, is a person who is very difficult to keep distracted, very difficult to keep living reactively, very difficult to keep believing that they are alone in the middle of a chaotic universe with no one at the controls. God was in every moment you called a coincidence, not watching from a distance, not observing with mild interest, actively present, actively arranging, setting up the collision of people, timing, and circumstance that produced the moment, and then watching to see whether you would recognize it for what it was, or file it away as luck and move on. Most of the time, we file it away. Not because we do not feel it, we feel it, but because the matrix has given us a vocabulary for dismissing it that is so automatic we use it before we even consciously decide to. Coincidence, luck, right place, right time. Small words for large moments designed to keep us moving without pausing long enough to ask what the moment was actually for. Here is what synchronicity actually looks like when you start paying attention to it. It looks like thinking about someone you have not spoken to in years and receiving a message from them within hours. It looks like being in a conversation about a problem you cannot solve and having the exact piece of information you needed arrive through a completely unrelated channel from someone who had no way of knowing what you were working through. It looks like opening a book to a random page and reading the sentence that answers the question you have been carrying for weeks. It looks like the job opportunity arriving the week after the previous one ended. The right person appearing in the season when you had finally stopped looking. The idea arriving in the middle of the night with a completeness that makes you certain it did not originate entirely within you. None of these things are dramatic. None of them require a supernatural explanation that collapses the ordinary. They are quiet, consistent, and easy to dismiss, which is exactly why most people dismiss them. The Matrix has trained you to require a certain threshold of obviousness before you take something seriously as meaningful. And synchronicity almost never crosses that threshold because it was never designed to be obvious. It was designed to be recognized. There is a difference between something being obvious and something being recognizable. Obvious means anyone would notice it. Recognizable means the person it was intended for would notice it. Synchronicity operates at the level of recognizable, which means it requires a particular quality of attention from you to register as what it actually is. This is why two people can experience the same sequence of events and come away with completely different interpretations. One person sees the connection, feels the significance, and responds to it. The other person files it as coincidence and moves on. The difference between them is not intelligence. It is the quality of attention they brought to the moment, and whether that attention was calibrated to look for meaning or trained to dismiss it. Now here is where this gets deeply personal. The synchronicities in your life have not been random. The moments that arrived unexpectedly and changed the direction of things, the collision of timing and circumstance and human connection that produced the turning points. Those were not accidents. They were appointments, set in advance by something that could see the full picture from an angle you don't have access to, and that placed the pieces where they needed to be long before you arrived at the moment where they became visible. Think about where you are right now, not just physically, but in your life. The circumstances you are in, the people around you, the season you are navigating. All of it arrived through a chain of events that, traced backward, includes at least one moment that could have gone differently. One conversation that almost did not happen. One decision made in uncertainty that turned out to be exactly right. One door that opened at a moment when you had stopped expecting doors to open. Pull that thread, follow it back as far as you can, and ask honestly, does this look like chaos? Does this look like a random accumulation of unconnected accidents that happen to produce the life you are currently living? Or does it look from a certain angle like something was being assembled? Like the pieces were being placed deliberately? Like the moments that felt most accidental were actually the most intentional of all? Because that is what synchronicity reveals when you are willing to look at it honestly. Not a perfect life, not a painless one, Not one where every arrangement worked out the way you hoped, but a guided one. A life in which the navigator has never once lost the thread, even in the seasons where you were certain the thread was gone. So what do you do with this? How does understanding synchronicity actually change anything practical about how you live? It changes your relationship with waiting. When you understand that the pieces are being arranged, that the timing is not random, that what looks like delay is often positioning, waiting transforms from a passive, anxious state into something closer to active trust. You are not waiting for something to happen. You are waiting for the arrangement to complete. And those two experiences of waiting feel completely different from the inside. It changes your relationship with the unexpected. When something arrives that you did not plan for, that disrupts your carefully constructed timeline, or takes you in a direction you did not choose, the first response is no longer panic or resistance. It is curiosity. What is this for? What is being arranged through this? What door does this disruption turn out to be when I look back at it from further down the road? It changes your relationship with the people who arrive in your life. When you understand that the collisions of human circumstance are not random, that the people who appear at specific moments appear for reasons that matter, you begin to pay a different quality of attention to the connections that form around you. Not every connection is significant, but some of them are appointments. And the difference between treating them as appointments and treating them as coincidences is the difference between receiving what was sent and walking past it without ever knowing it was there. And perhaps most importantly, it changes your relationship with God. Because synchronicity, at its core, is evidence of a particular kind of relationship. Not the relationship between a distant creator and an indifferent universe. Not the relationship between a watchmaker who built the clock and then walked away, but the relationship between a father who is actively present in the details, who knows not just the large movements of a life, but the specific moments, the specific collisions, the specific people and timing and circumstance that his child needs at each particular point along the way. A God who arranges synchronicities is not a God who set things in motion and stepped back. He is a God who is still moving things, still placing people, still orchestrating timing, still working inside the ordinary fabric of daily life to produce moments that are anything but ordinary, that carry meaning and direction and invitation, dressed up in the plain clothing of coincidence, so that only the people paying the right kind of attention will recognize them for what they are. You are one of those people. The fact that you are here, that this particular message found you at this particular moment, is not an accident. It is consistent with the pattern that has been running through your entire life, whether you have been naming it or not. The question it leaves you with is not whether synchronicity is real. You already know it is. You have felt it too many times to honestly dismiss it. The question is what you do now, with the recognition that the moments you called a coincidence were actually something else entirely. The answer is simpler than you might expect. You pay attention differently. You move through your life with the quiet awareness that the ordinary moments are not always as ordinary as they appear. That the conversation you are about to have, the door you are about to walk through, the person you're about to meet, any of them could be the next arrangement. the next synchronicity, the next moment that looks like coincidence from the outside and feels, from the inside, exactly like it was always going to happen. Because it was. If this reached you the way it was meant to, write this where you can see it. This was not an accident. Type it in the comments. Not as a philosophical statement, as a personal declaration about this moment, about this message, about the life you are living that has been more guided than you have been giving it credit for. And if you have not already, subscribe, because this story is still being told, one chapter at a time, and you are not meant to miss what comes next. Until the next one, awakened choosers.